All right, all right. Welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict. Breaking news. We got another information that we wanted to share with you. What's going on, Elizabeth?
There is a democracy summit that is being hosted by the US. It is a virtual summit and it is happening this week. And there are some important things I think we need to talk about this summit. I think it's raised a lot of eyebrows around the world, coming from the United States and where the United States is with democracy now. I don't know that most people here uh, would claim that our democracy is doing very well.
No.
Wouldn't you
Well,
say, David?
yeah. Well, I'm laughing, but laughing not. I'm laughing in the sense of that's hypocrisy at display.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm laughing at. It's a sadness. It's not about making joke of the matter. It's not. But you're absolutely correct. The summit will be held virtually between the 8th and the 9th for the next 2 3 days. There's already a hypes about it. Well, why is the hypes? It's because first of all, the summit is just a window dressing. Let's just put that to because President Biden will have to keep his campaign promise per se. But the argument is okay, if we are to tell other countries about democracies, let's look in the mirror. How about fixing our own first?
Yes. Yeah, and you're very correct. And I think that's the biggest reason that there's so many raised eyebrows around the world at this. So I went and actually looked at
Mm-hmm,
the website
mm-hmm,
for state.gov's website. Let's see, there it is. And so this summit talks about a couple of things, and the one of the things that it brings up is it does this page does actually address the fact that democracy has a bunch of issues, and it even says. Showcase one of democracy's unique strengths, the ability to acknowledge its imperfections and confront them openly and transparently. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I do see that they're saying that. But this gave me a little bit of a shock because defending against authoritarianism, which right now there's a lot of conversation about authoritarianism in democratic places. Let's look at Australia for a second. Let's look at Austria. There are some places in the Western-ish sort of
yeah.
bundle world, where authoritarianism is very it's very it's becoming more prevalent. I don't know how to say that in a more gentle way, but it's becoming something that people are concerned about.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you have to think about it by saying it in a gentle way, and we all know why,
Yes,
it
we all
tells
know
you
why.
right there where is the transparency of this democracy right here at home. I mean, let's
Mhm.
face it. And my argument is okay, all this is good and great and all that, but how about if we do this first? How about if we fix our own democracy first? We
Right.
got a poverty numbers that they are going up. We got a crumbling infrastructure that is, not to the benefit of anybody. We got an education system that is broken. We got a tax system that is broken, a healthcare that is so costly that now people, I've had some conversation with people now, they said, I'd rather get sick, but I can't afford to go to the ER.
Right.
So if we have to talk about democracy, let's fix the stuff here at home first before we start dictating to other countries, oh, you need to be democratic when we couldn't do it ourselves first. So, and
Right.
as to your point for the idea of transparency, well, if we are to be careful about what we're saying on this platform, where is democracy?
Yes, I agree with that completely. I also want to bring up, their censorship in China, because we do talk about China a lot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And China created their own white paper on democracy,
mm-hmm.
as a result of not
Of course,
being
invited.
invited to the party
Yeah.
for this Democratic summit. And it's sort of a in its own way a scathing letter
Mm-hmm.
on the US's version of democracy. And I want to speak to, you know I I don't feel that what China is doing would work here. I think
No, no, I
that
won't.
in the US,
Yeah.
we very much value freedom. It's part of the culture here.
Mhm.
And so there are some things that work other places that don't
Mhm.
necessarily work here. And we're starting to see some of those things. And like, censorship, it's something that you just addressed, David. Censorship is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem here. That goes against free speech, which is one of the things that this beautiful country, this beautiful land with these beautiful people was founded on.
Yeah, exactly. But here is the danger, the way I see it personally, and this is my
Mhm.
personal opinion. I speak for myself. Where I see the danger into this call about the call for the summits on democracy and so forth, when you are targeting it, because the two key points for the summit is to defend the democracy against authoritarian regimes. Okay, well, if you are to look around the world with all the different systems that exist, that's usually when you state it that way, that's a dangerous narrative per se. This competition and tensions with other systems, we all know sometimes where it will lead to. you know
Yes.
but also because an average Joe or average Jane here in the US, as I always say, and I don't like to beat the dead horse here, an average Joe, average Jane worries about dinner.
Right.
What's dinner? They're not going to be worrying about ideologies, concepts, principles, whether the government's doing the right thing or not.
Hmm.
And this is where I see the danger of, you calling on a summit that is, almost like a window dressing when you are doing the things that you exactly criticizing other countries for, like the
Right.
censorship. Yeah,
Right. You're absolutely right. Censorship, human rights violations, those things unfortunately are happening here too.
yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
and
Exactly. And if we are to talk about, what, Elizabeth, if we are to talk about this human rights stuff, well, how come we don't hear much about what's going on in Yemen? I keep always talking about Yemen because I've
yeah.
been there and I saw with my own eyes the atrocities that have been committed there. So, where are we in this democracy? Why aren't we
Mhm.
stepping forward to, if we are to be the beacon of democracy, why aren't we saying anything to the Saudis and United Arab Emirates to stop? What are we selling our weapons to?
Right.
To me, that's a hypocrisy. You can't tell people what to do if you couldn't do it yourself.
Right.
You lead by example, as we all know. But you can't be telling other people, well, you have to be democratic. Well, wait a minute, maybe their system works for them differently than ours.
And it's certainly not perfect, but I think the issue here that we're trying to bring to the table is that a lot of the things that we hold as the really important beacons of democracy
Hmm.
aren't being upheld in a really substantial way. It's not even just a little bit. It's big problems. You bring up Yemen, that's it's selective human rights violations anger. It's picking and choosing which human rights violations are a problem and which aren't, when quite frankly all of them are a problem.
Yeah.
Internally and externally, all of them are a problem. And Afghanistan is one that really is something that I have been following, and it's something you brought up, where parents are selling their children.
Uh-huh.
And that is an unbelievable human rights violation. And that's something that happened because of how quickly the United States pulled out of Afghanistan. And no
Hmm.
one's talking about that anymore. No
No,
one is
because
talking
yeah,
about
and
it.
this is where the issue. We can be cherry picking. We cherry
Mhm.
picking what's convenient politically speaking. You know, I mean, if
Right.
we are to do this summit on democracy, which is great and all that, but first let's deal with our own issues first, because we got plenty. We got plenty of issues to be dealing with.
Right. And so I think, when we looked at the white paper that came out of China, I think one of the things that was brought up was that, we have a government that's ruled by basically the elites and basically ruled by money. And that's, in my experience, that's not necessarily wrong. I think it's something that people are starting to see more and more is that corporate interests are actually the ones that are governing our country. And even when you look at democracy, because democracy is about voting, it's about you voting and you choosing your elected officials, the people that are there to work for you, the people that are there to work, to make your lives better. You vote them in, you elect them. But the problem is we don't get to choose who we get to choose. And that's the same in non-democratic places, but it's not masquerading as a democratic process.
Yeah.
So if we're going to be honest about what something is, many people for many elections have said, which is the best of two evils? And I don't know that if we were offered the choice of either candidate in a whole lineup of candidates, that either of them are who we would have chosen.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
And not
well, also because how the system is set up. Just to go back to your point about the money in politics here, we have to thank the Supreme Court decision back in 2010 for this, for allowing this massive access to money, because the issue that comes with that, it becomes the issue of corruption, something we're not willing to address it and say it straightforward. And this is why you see in those who ran for office tends to be a little bit wealthier, and it's because the amount of money involved, and it becomes the person or the candidate with great ideas, but if he is not from the circles, he will be dismissed. That is our problem. And this is where my fear personally, as to what I'm seeing our country is headed for, my big concern is that within the next 10 years, you're going to have only a few companies control the whole process.
And we're seeing that more and more.
And that's scary.
It is. It's very scary. If you look at media, the majority of media is actually Disney in the United States. The majority of the media that almost everyone consumes, most of it is actually run by Disney. But I think there's like 6 companies that run almost all, or if not all, of the media that we consume here. 6 companies.
Yeah.
And that's, you can say whatever you want, but everyone's got an agenda. Hi, Ramen. That's my dog, Ramen. If any of you can hear him, he wants to go outside. I'll let him out after this. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, that is the issue with this. And this is where that concern, within a decade or so now, we're going to be seeing much more control of resources through a few companies. The monopoly aspect, usually, we all know that in a democracy, competition is the hallmark. That's usually how it's supposed to be. No more. Because you look at now, you take Amazon, the example of Amazon, you take Microsoft, what did Microsoft create anything new that it didn't do 20 or 25 years ago? Nothing. So, but the big concern, you got those elites now controlling the production resources that will give you only few choices as to where you're going to shop, what you're going to do, what you're going to buy. And that's a big concern.
It's a huge concern. And speaking to your point, David, businesses, small businesses have been absolutely obliterated over the last 2 years. And where did all that business go to? It went to large companies. It went to the Amazons of the world. And so, it's very clear that there's a consolidation that's happening of power. And we can say, oh, well, we're a democracy. But when you look at actual choices that we have, the amount of companies that we have to buy from, for example, is shrinking, not growing. The amount of freedoms we have are shrinking, not growing. And in certain ways, freedom is one of the things that makes a democracy. Yeah. And those things are going away. And so I hope, although I do not believe this will be the case, I hope that really more will come out of this summit than just lip service. But David, do you think more will come out of it?
No, I'll hate to say it. I'm a straight shooter. I don't sugarcoat it. This is nothing but a window dressing. I spent years in Washington, D.C. I understand how the system works. To me, if you truly want something to come out of this, start with addressing the issues at home first. before you start inviting guests. And if you invite guests, you're going to be very selective about who you're inviting. Well, that tells right there the story. So
Right.
this is where my concern for. I'm more concerned about where our country is headed. So I rather address the issues that, this is what we're doing on this channel here. This is not about. I've heard and I've read the comments from those who say, well, you guys are too negative on the US, and that's nonsense. They do not like to hear the truth. That's the bottom line to it. And it's a human nature. You will know this more than anyone else. When we don't like to hear the truth, what do? We reject it. We push against it. And that's all it is.
Interestingly enough, so first of all, I would like to say I love our country.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
Here are good people. They're good, kind-hearted people who really are getting taken for a ride. And so, not to negate the everyday person's responsibility for, electing certain officials or whatever, but like I said, it's not as clear as, we can elect. We get several choices, and honestly, lately none of them have really been that great. And it's kind of a rigged system. And there's a video that my father and I actually did on learned helplessness on my other channel, which I will share with you guys. But people here are good people for the most part. There's bad people everywhere. Okay, there's bad people everywhere, but for the most part, it's good people, and we love it here, and we want to see the world thrive. But speaking to that, David, so there's what did you just say? Actually, sorry, I went on this like side tangent, but what did you just say?
Which one? About the idea of where our country is headed?
Well, that's for sure. But I was going to talk about a psychological phenomena, but I got really.
Is the idea of, is the idea of how can we be telling others when we don't like to hear the truth?
We don't
like to hear the truth, we push away.
Okay, so here's why that happens. If any of you were interested in why people don't want to hear the truth, so in our minds, it's the same reaction. Like they did a whole bunch of studies on this, but it's the same reaction if somebody attacks your worldview as if somebody attacked you physically. So human beings experience emotions physically. We experience them as physical pain. So like, for example, if you get a broken heart, right? If someone hurts you, if you take a painkiller, it will actually lessen that emotion. It'll lessen the emotional pain because we can't separate ourselves from our physiology, from our bodies. So when somebody attacks your worldview, you get a physical reaction. It's a physical pain, a physical fear. Because human beings are always looking out for their own safety. They're always looking out for, am I going to get eaten by this lion, right? We're always looking out for, are we going to be safe? And so when someone attacks your worldview, you literally feel a physical fear or pain reaction. So when you're trying to talk to someone and you're trying to give them the truth, there are some ways to sort of lessen it. But always understand that human beings are looking to protect their worldview. We think that we're really good at change, but people are really bad at change. And so, none of us wants to change, even though it's the constant in life is change. So, so always keep that in mind, that if you want to tell someone a truth that they have a really hard time that they'll have a really hard time with, look at ways to sort of soften and understand what they're talking about, and it'll help them out. Come here, buddy.
So that is where this issue is, that I believe, when people say, you guys are negative on this, it's like, hold on a second. I respect what you say, and I disagree with what you say, but that doesn't mean you categorize me or the team or whatever just because we are saying the truth that you do not want to hear. And this is what I don't get it for individuals who jump to conclusions right there quickly, because to me they're reacting emotionally rather than, why don't you listen to what I have to say, evaluate it, and reach your conclusion, and I will still respect your opinion whether you agree with me or not. And that's what I don't get for why by the way,
Yes.
TNT. Oh my gosh, look at that, Elizabeth. That was
Yes.
TNT. TNT, thank you so much.
Thank
We truly,
you.
truly appreciate it. And which, yeah,
You want
TNT always put the stuff for us.
The US does not have democracy. Democracy is for, by, and of the people. And clearly, that is not what the US government represents. But Americans, sadly, are so fooled to believe its government can't do more for their own people.
Yeah. Well, see, I have to agree with his statements because this is not about because he got a stick or whatever. If he was wrong, I will say so. But he got a point there because when you look at our Constitution, what does it say right there? The government is for the people, by the people.
Right.
For the government is for the people, by the people. But till you have people who are informed and understand their role within the system, like I said, average Joe, average Jane, worries about dinner. They're not going to be thinking in those terms. So when we are saying to the world, we are the beacon of democracy, when we couldn't take care of our own issues, that becomes a problem. So.
I agree with that. But I also do see people in the United States starting, okay, I just
Indeed.
want to preface that, starting to realize something else is going on here. And I think if nothing else, the last 2 years really brought a lot of people's awareness to the fact that things are not as they seem. Because before that, it's like the frog in the pot, right, David? How do you boil a frog alive?
Slowly, one drop at a time.
Slowly,
That's
1
indeed.
degree at a
Yeah.
time. And that's in its own way sort of what had happened here, is that, everything was kind of getting slowly degrading, but it wasn't so obvious. Right now it's really obvious.
Yeah. Well, you will hope that people will wake up, per se, here in the US, that I'm sure some do, some don't. But majority, and I will say it, majority are oblivious to what's going on because they are being distracted by design.
Yes.
And we tend, some of us, and I shall not generalize, of course, some of us tends to be poor readers. Once again, it falls back to that point of they are not willing to hear the truth.
Right.
That's the bottom line to it. So it's unfortunate. So I truly wish this summit will yield anything, but I am here to say it will not. I am not being a pessimistic guy. I'm a very, very optimistic. I'm a very positive, but I call spade a spade. I know what those meetings are all about and gonna serve any American whatsoever. So it's the reality. That's how I see it.
And I hope that's not
Seekers,
true.
did you see that sticker from
Yes.
Seekers? Thank you,
Yes.
Seekers. We truly appreciate it. How can US speak of democracy when the US overthrows democratically elected foreign countries? They got a point there. I'm gonna share an example with our viewers. Maybe they will know, maybe not. The elections in Egypt. The first elected Arab democratic official who won the elections in Egypt. And what happened 3 months later, or whatever that time was? He was ejected, and the US approved the coup that the US and Saudi Arabia approved the coup that the current president Sisi, who was a general back then, ended up conducting that. So why? Because we didn't like the outcome that the Egyptian people picked up somebody democratically. So yeah, he got a point there. So I'll have to say it. Yeah. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that, as I always say, and I've been arguing this for so many times, that sometimes, did we become a shadow of a nation that, we used to think of us being respected, we being cherished, around the world. Countries used to look up to the US. Not anymore. I'll say it. Not anymore. Why? It's because Washington and their both parties, the Republicans and Democrats, they are the same coin, just with both sides to it.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly, you are exactly speaking to what I was saying, is that, it's the illusion of choice. in a
Yeah,
way, because it is, it doesn't matter which party's been in power. Both
mm,
parties have done some pretty horrendous things.
yeah. Well, most Americans do not understand and know that both political parties have been controlling the political process for the last 150 years. And
Hmm.
it does not look like it's going to change. And this is why I always argue, when Washington under either party, speaks as it is all knowing and it is this moral authority and so forth, when we have failed to preserve just a basic human decency and dignity. Look no further than Yemen. I always
Yeah.
keep going back to Yemen because it's still going on today.
Hmm.
And this is why when you get anybody stepping in Washington from the president down, when they speak about this foreign policy, what the world hears, they hear only about chest beating, bravado and meaningless, chaotic things about human rights and bad claims about global greatness and so forth. No wonder why the whole world sometimes they take a step back and think, you know, America is not what it used to be anymore.
Right. And I think we are feeling that too. It's not
Yeah,
what it
and
used to be.
this is what we're doing. We're trying to raise awareness. We are not
Mhm.
about just criticizing America. It's my
Right.
country. Heck, I went to wars for the United States. I usually don't talk about that side of my life. I put my life in danger that sometimes I
Yeah.
survived. I survived one day a bullet that passed close to my ear.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I don't talk about stuff like that. But at the same
Mhm.
time, when you start talking like this, because we care,
Yeah.
I'm seeing the danger where the path we are going into. That's going to lead to some consequences. It's like when you fire a bullet. Once you pull the trigger, that bullet is not coming back.
Right. It's
And
not.
that's where my concern. I fear for what lies ahead with this, some companies trying to control the process, with those
Mhm.
elite, whomever that might be, start dictating the policies when the government itself exists nothing as a tool for those elites to whatever they want to do, whatever they're thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe Americans needs to wake up, and maybe it's time for it.
I think it's time. I think we have to. I
Yeah.
think it is necessary for us and for the rest of the world for that to happen.
Yeah,
Because
that's
right.
that's the only way it's gonna be. If we are to live in peace, this is
Yes.
not about just the US.
Yes.
If we are to live in peace, that peace has to start with understanding others.
Hmm.
You can't be dictating to others. You have to sit down with them on an equal footing. You don't
Absolutely.
come with that arrogance of I'm better than you, I'm this and that. All that's nonsense. It's nonsense. So,
Absolutely. And I think that some, speaking of democracy, some of the biggest violations that are happening in, if you look at what democracy actually means, are
yeah,
happening in democratic countries.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and so I agree with you.
Yeah, most countries made mistakes. Sometimes you just have to come to grip with your history. Step forward and accept the responsibility that we made mistakes and turn the
Mhm.
page and start fresh. But you can't be telling the world, yeah, we're gonna turn the page, but we're still doing the old tricks.
Right.
And
And
that
it's the
becomes,
same
yeah,
people who are doing them
exactly.
though. Do you know what I
Exactly.
mean? I don't see right now, it's not changing. We're not getting different people. We have Biden in the White House right now, but most people don't know, and you talk about this too all the time, that the president is not making all of these decisions. He has
Uh,
an entire structure underneath him. He has people who have been in their roles militarily in the government for much longer than he has. He has an entire team of people behind him who are telling him what to say and what to do. It's just a figurehead. But that's not the person who's making all of these decisions. And most people don't know that. That's why, over many administrations, there are things that don't change if you notice. There are policies that stay the same. There are the way things that are done that is stay the same. So even if the figurehead changes, that doesn't mean there are different people creating the rules or creating what's happening.
Exactly. So, well, we hope this is why we wanted to share this with our viewers. Let's say it, and let's hope something come out of this. I am not convinced 100%. I can't pretend. I don't pretend. I am what you see. Yes. I just don't sense, because I look at the trends. This is nothing but a hypes, no more, no less. So, but we wanted to bring this info to our viewers. They can reach their own conclusions. So that is the reason why we wanted to let them know. So, but I take this opportunity to say thank you to those who posted the stickers for us. We thank you for that. And also wanted to let you guys know to follow us on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at David Waralu and Elizabeth at Alchemy of E. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on TikTok. We are currently, just to share this with you guys, we are currently working on a Rumble. We're going to be there. And there are some, did you hear about Rumbles? They're going to be something.
They are.
Something.
They are. They joined with locals. So we're also going to have a locals page. We have one right now, but there's not a lot on it, but you can check it out. But we have a Rumble. Go check that out. And I think Rumble is going to really be something.
I think so too. So,
and they're good people over there. They're good people over at Rumble.
Indeed, because they want what's good. They want what's good. So, and also want you to guys check out our website at geopoliticsandconflict.com. That's usually where we have our membership. It was a great conversation we had during last presentation. I think we have a next one coming up in about a week.
So we have a members Q&A coming up on Wednesday. And for you guys to note, when we do the members Q&A, it's live over Zoom. So if you want to get on camera and talk to us, you can. It's kind of an open. It's a really cool way to actually really talk to us if you want to, because even when we have a Q&A coming up for our YouTube for you guys on Wednesday also. But even then, we can't get to a fraction of the questions that you guys have for us. So so check it out. We do have a members only Q&A coming up. It's at geopoliticsandconflict.com. And then there's another presentation for members next week. Indeed. And that is the new military global order.
Indeed. And that one, we're going to be addressing some really very how shall I put it? Well, because it touches on some stuff out of space. We'll just leave it at that. So we're going to, because it's a different platform, we can talk openly there. And so we got some stuff to share with our viewers for that one. So, and for Friday, we do live stream. We're going to be talking about space again, especially with the China's discovery on the dark side of the moon. What does it mean for our existence as a human species? And it shall be an interesting conversation. I look forward to that. Absolutely. Anything to add, Elizabeth, before we go?
That's it. Thank you guys so much for being with us.
Exactly. Well, we truly appreciate it. I like those break-ins because we got a chance to share information with our viewers right away and just to keep them informed. So, well, as always, stay informed, guys. Till next time. Bye-bye.